Alright, hey, it's Charles, the Redneck Nerd, back at you for video number 6. Today we are coming at you with the Ontario Marine Raider Bowie that I have modified. And really, the only things I've done to this one is strip off the black coating from the saber grind down and across the top of the spine and polish it. But that takes a bit of time. Now, the Marine Raider Bowie has a 9.75 inch blade with a 5.25 inch handle for an overall length of 15 inches. It's made out of 1095 high carbon steel with a hardness rating of 57 to 59. The black coating, of course, is meant to protect from rust and to make it more of a tactical knife. A 10-inch knife that weighs 24 ounces is not really one you're going to want to carry if you're having to count every ounce because you're a ground pounder in the military. Not your average soldier anyway. They're going to want something a lot closer to 8 ounces overall and probably with a 5-inch blade length. That's why the military usually gives the Gerber LMF to our troops. Now I decided to strip off the coating. Now there are two ways you can do it. You can use Jasco, a chemical, to remove all the coating, or you can spot remove it with Jasco by just painting it basically on where you want to go. But Jasco is highly corrosive, and you've really got to avoid getting those chemicals on your skin because they will eat through your skin quickly. So I went with the sandpaper route with 80 grit sandpaper. It took about 15 minutes to sand it down to where all the metal you see as bare metal was actually clean metal. And the grind lines really show up then. So to get rid of the grind lines, I began with a 200 grit sandpaper, just sanding it out till we got a nice dull, thought I had most of the grind lines removed. Then I went up to a 500 grit sandpaper. Each one of these steps only takes about 2 to 3 minutes per side. 2 to 3 minutes later, that side's done with the 500 grit. Then I went to 1,000 grit. 2 to 3 minutes later, go up to 1,500 grit. 2 to 3 minutes later, go to 2,000 grit. And then 2 to 3 minutes later, go to 3,000 grit. And basically at this point, the last two grits, 2,000 and 3,000, you're really just polishing the blade. You're not really going to be removing much metal. Now, if you use the 2,000 grit and stop there, you get a more satin finish. As you can probably see, I think you can see reflections in this. I've gone to closer to a mirror polish with the 3,000 grit. Now, this is a working knife, so I'm not real concerned about it being completely perfect mirror polish. It would be nice, and especially if I was just going to display it, yeah, I would probably do it till I had it shining like Excalibur. When you saw it, the light would just reflect off of it and blind you. But with a knife that I'm going to be using around the yard, taking on camping trips to process firewood and things like that, it doesn't have to be perfect. Now, high carbon steel, once you get to this point, you're going to have to cover it with something or it's going to rust. I've been using rim oil for most of my life on my high carbon steel blades. Recently, I've started trying Eagle's Tears. It comes in a little tube, looks almost like a chapstick tube. It is more of a paste product, more of a wax. So it's going to last longer, and you can really work it into the blade, so it's just a very thin coating and you really don't notice it on the blade at all. Now, I have done several other blades this way. I've done my Beckers with this same pattern from the saber grind down, is now high polished. I will tell you this, the Becker coating, at least on my Beckers, K-bar Beckers, was nowhere near as tough as the Ontario powder coat finish. The Ontario powder coat finish took about 15 minutes per side to sand down with 80 grit. The Beckers took between 5 and 10 minutes each on each side. I've always heard that the Beckers had a harder powder coating on them that took a lot longer to get off. For me, it didn't work out that way. Of course, I'd also used those Beckers a lot, so the powder coating had really taken a beating over the years. Now, if you want to see more of this, leave a comment, let me know, and I will probably eventually do one where I go back through on one of these buoys, take it back to a 200 grit, and just show you the process of 200 grit to 500 grit to 1,000 grit to 1,500 grit on one side. Because, like I said, I do go back and kind of work on these after every trip out and use to just try and get more of the grind lines out. That way I get some use out of them, and then I get to work on them again. It's fun for me. Just want to thank y'all for stopping by. Have a good week, and stay safe.